In this video, we are going to talk about naming amides. So let's go over our first example. How would you name this amide? So we have two carbons, which is associated with ethane, but we're going to take the E out and replace it with amide. So ethanamide would be the name of this amide. How would you name this one? So for this one, we have 3 carbons, which is associated with propane. But we're going to take the E out and replace it with amide. So propanamide would be the name for this one. And keep something else in mind. This is called a primary amide because the nitrogen is attached to one carbon. So this is primary. How would we name this one? So on this one, we have in the main chain, we have 4 carbons, and on position 2 we have a methyl. So because we have 4 carbons, it's going to be butanamide, and then for our substituent it would be 2-methyl. And this is once again a primary amide because it only connects to one carbon. The nitrogen does. How do we name this molecule? So first of all, keep in mind this is a secondary amine because the nitrogen connects to 2 carbons. Now we have, in the main chain, we have 1, 2, 3 carbons. So this is called propanamide. And then in terms of our substituents, we have a CH3 on the nitrogen. And so this would be called N-methyl. And then we have a CH3 on the second carbon, which would be 2-methyl. So to put it together, you would put the letter first before the number, N, 2, dimethyl propanamide. How do we name this molecule? So look at the nitrogen, and it's attached to 1, 2, 3 carbons. So this would be a tertiary amide. And on the main chain, we have 4 carbons, and for our substituents, we have 2 ethyls on the nitrogen. So for a substituent, it would be N, N, diethyl, and then for the parent chain name it would be butanamide. Now, what if we have different types of substituents on the nitrogen? What do we do here? our main chain has 5 carbons, so this would be pentanamide. We have a methyl and we have an ethyl. So when we write the name, which one do we write first? Do we write the methyl or the ethyl first? So we're going to write the ethyl first because E comes first in the alphabet. So N ethyl N methyl pentanamide. Let's move on to our next example. So in this case, what if we have a ring, a cyclohexane ring that is attached to an amide? What do we do in that case? So since this is cyclohexane, we're going to write cyclohexane and then carboxamide. Now, what if we have a similar molecule, but this time we have a benzene that is going to be attached to the amine? What do we do in this case? So we have here a benzyl, and then we have an amide, so this would be benzamide. It's actually going to be benzanamide. How do we name this example? This is a hydrogen, by the way. So starting with substituents, we have a cyclohexane as our substituent, but we're actually going to call this N-cyclohexyl. And then the main chain over here, that's called benzanamide. So it would be benzanamide for the name of the main chain, and then in terms of substituents, we have N-cyclohexyl. So N-cyclohexyl benzanamide is going to be the name of this molecule. Now, what if we have the benzene ring as a substituent of the nitrogen? What do we do in that case? So the name of this substituent is going to be called N-phenyl. And the main chain is going to have 4 carbons, so it's going to be called a butanamide. So we put N-phenylbutanamide. Now let's look at a more complicated example. So how do we name this molecule? So realize that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons in the main chain. So that would be associated with butanamide. However, we have 4 substituents. So on carbon number 3, we have something called a hydroxy. So this is a 3-hydroxy. Whenever you see an OH, it's going to be hydroxy. However, if you see an OH by itself without any other substituent, it's going to be an alcohol, but the amide takes priority over the alcohol. And so we also have fluorine right here. So that's going to be 4-fluoro. And then on the nitrogen, we have a cyclohexane. So that's going to be an N-cyclohexyl. We also have a benzene ring on the nitrogen. So this would be N-phenyl. Now, how do we write these out in a name? We want to alphabetize them. So the first one that comes is going to be cyclohexyl because C comes before all of the rest of them in the alphabet. So N-cyclohexyl is how we're going to start this. Then we'd move on to 4-fluoro because F is next in the alphabet. Then we get to 3-hydroxy. Running out of space, so I'm going to move the butanamide to the right. And then we have, lastly, we have N-phenyl. So N-cyclohexyl, 4-fluoro, 3-hydroxy, N-phenyl butanamide. Let's look at our last example. What if we have 2 amines? What do we do in that case? So we have 4 carbons, which is associated with butane, and then we're going to add a diamide after it. We're not going to erase the E this time. E is going to stay. So butane diamide would be the name of this molecule. So that's the video. Thank you for watching.